Mahalo for being with us today, Jesse, and representing the vision and mission of Ulupono. Can you share a little bit more about how your organization regards food sovereignty and maybe some thoughts on where we can go with that?
Our primary goals is to increase local production for local consumption. And we view it as a question of security for the communities in Hawaii. Right now, we probably depend on imported food, by maybe 80 to 90% of our diets. And this leaves us very, very vulnerable to natural disasters or food supply chain disruptions that we experienced during COVID. So for Ulupono, the security aspect is very, very important first and foremost. After that, I think it's really about funding and supporting farming organizations that are going to be sustainable, that are going to be profitable, that won't require philanthropic support or government support every single year, but can survive on their own. And that's the type of food organizations we want to see thrive and expand.
And from your position as an analyst of data and information, can you share a little bit more about what you've learned relative to the farming community?
We've spoke previously about the lack of data that's out there right now regarding farming. And there's really, a misconception that we have a lot of these large farmers that are taking up all of the sales or not letting small farmers in the equation. And for us, if you look at the stats, Hawaii is almost all small farmers. Only, I would say, 12% of farmers in Hawaii make over $50,000 in revenue. Only 12%. And that 12%, astoundingly, is responsible for 90% of the food production here in Hawaii. So we have some large farmers, but in actuality, they're not very large. The average size of the Hawaii farmer is 3 to 4 times smaller than that of the mainland. So for Hawaii, we really need to try and make these smaller farming operations profitable and sustainable.
And what are some of the recommendations or suggestions that you have to that? We can change the laws, of course, and then the law has to be implemented, but concrete ideas.
For the farmers, the concrete ideas is just implementing new farming technology like greenhouses, hydroponic methods of farming, mechanized farming. Again, in Hawaii, there's this notion that, we can provide for our people without using tractors or equipment or larger scale agriculture. And it's really not the case given our population and how vulnerable we are. So on the farming side, it's about incorporating technology. On the government side, on the demand side, of course, consumers need to buy more local when they can, of course. The issue has always been pricing. So that's another issue with supply. When you have a lot of small farmers, you don't have the economies of scale that you would have if you had larger farmers like on the mainland. So a lot of times imports are much less expensive. Also, we need a little bit more government support. I think one of the biggest ways that the government can support farming and at the same time students and their nutritional needs is to implement more local food into school system, implement more local food into the hospital system, into the prison system, and, put their money where their mouth is, right? A lot of folks, a lot of politicians talk about agriculture, but there's no real kind of backup. There's no end game for them besides saying, hey, we really believe in farming. But at the end of the day, farming needs some government support. During the pandemic, it was the farmers that started donating to food banks early and often. So you really need that local consumption to be a safety barrier, right, against these food supply chain disruptions, against disasters. If you don't have local food production, then you're totally dependent on imports, and anything can occur at that point.
Well, and you bring up a very good point, that when crisis comes, we help each other. Hopefully we don't have a lot of more crises, but with climate change and with shipping and all that, we never know. What ideas might you have to encourage the viewing audience to shift their paradigm, to shift how they look at agriculture? We can buy agriculture products, local products, little more expensive because we believe in, in supporting the farmers. But what other ideas can you have that really will move the dial ahead?
Well, I think, again, it's really about talking to your local lawmakers, really asking them, hey, what are we doing to support local food production? Fresh food, non-processed food. Why aren't we using more of that type of food with our kids and in student meals in our hospitals? If the state really believes in local food production, where is it supporting local food production? And, besides all of the buy local, which is great, but everybody knows that. I think everybody tries to do it when they can. I think people prefer local when it's at the same price as an imported product or even a little more expensive. But the other things they can do is really talk to their lawmakers and officials and ask, what are you doing to support local? What are your plans to support local in the future?
And how do other businesses, from the visitor industry, construction, how do they play into this?
Oh, businesses are huge, right? I think during the pandemic, it was estimated that the farm sales were down 50%. And the pandemic showed that the restaurant and hotel industry were huge customers of local farming. And when that industry got shut down, local farmers were really in a bad way. So I think, restaurants, hotels, any type of food service organization, if they can implement more local food, that's all the better. And I think most institutions have, because customers really like farm fresh food. They want to know that it's from somebody in Kalihi or Waianae, right? Rather than somebody in Mexico, maybe, or in California. It's better to have that local name on your menu. So businesses, I think, if they can find it at the right price, they'll definitely want local produce and local meat.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your ideas, and Ulupono's mission and vision to help the food sovereignty and help people in Hawaii. So we really appreciate your time, and let's hold the vision as possible.
Thank you so much.
You've just met Jesse Cooke, Vice President of Investments and Analytics with the Ulupono Initiative.